These are not the fun ones, man, because this is where you're questioning the overall direction of everything right now.
This is
the low point of the DeMeco Ryans era.
There wasn't necessarily a turning point in a game in which no points would be scored by the Texans offense. It was more of I was trying to figure out, when did I run out of pep talks for myself? I think it might have been when they didn't score down from the 4-yard line. And Greg Olsen, we'll play the audio later, because I went back and I watched the condensed TV this morning, because I'm going to go back and watch the whole broadcast because I like Greg Olsen a lot.
Well, and then the Netflix broadcast too, to see how they did.
Yeah. Boy, I'll relive all of this at least 3 times in the next 48 hours. So the thing that, and by the way, we've got John Harrison tomorrow filling in for you, and I'm excited to have John's perspective on a lot of this. I think when after the incompletion of Mechie on 3rd down from the 4-yard line, that Greg Olsen said, I'd like to see some crossers or some meshes here, something to help guys get open. Because in that situation on that play, they were running just a bunch of guys across the board who aren't especially great at creating separation and man coverage. All just lined up, trying to get separation in man coverage.
Trying to get separation in about a 5-yard area.
Yeah.
Like, in the most condensed part of the field.
That was almost like the perfect summation of everything. Because part of it, too, not to excuse Bobby Slowick or anybody else, but part of it comes into because, well, you certainly don't have a team that can just mash it in. Your play action is rendered moot because nobody respects the Texans' run game whatsoever. But yes, there are some things you can do from a play calling standpoint. They just looked inept and unable to compete yesterday. That was where I realized, all right, my pep talks are gone. The defense, we're going to talk a lot about C.J. Stroud and the offense for the rest of the season and on into the offseason especially. But the defense come out the way they did, really unaware. I was really disappointed in the defensive tackles, and I brother-in-law the defensive line a little too much maybe because I've got a natural sympathy for them.
Sure.
Man, the Ravens, credit to them for a game plan that said, hey, these defensive linemen play a hyper-aggressive style of football, and we're just going to exploit that. And the defensive tackles obliged. They were running upfield unaware.
Big holes.
And it's just that, hey, I didn't know you could block me from that direction.
Right.
It was ugly, man. It was ugly all around.
It was bad. I guess technically I tapped out. I do take copious notes during the game. And I pride myself on taking notes all the way to the final gun. Just the 2 columns, 1 for each half, each possession, down and distance, the key plays, circle them. Got to 31-2 on that very easy Mark Andrews touchdown, where literally I'm just typing touchdown coming, ... and then Mark Andrews. Like, you just know, like, this Ravens team, you just know it's coming. And I just wrote about a third of the way down the second half column. Hope you all enjoyed the Beyonce concert because unless something noteworthy happens, this is the end of the Pender Notes for tonight. Thanks for ruining Thanksgiving and Christmas.
Thanksgiving and retroactively. They did ruin Thanksgiving. They ruined
Thanksgiving by losing to the Titans the Sunday before Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
So they, at home.
That put you in a funk for 4 days.
At home, it kind of did, actually. Yeah. They ruined Thanksgiving and Christmas this year, and that's unforgivable.
Another thing that bothers me the most.
Major eating holidays.
The thing that bothers me the most is that this is a team that the 2 opportunities they've had to play on just the 4 days of rest this year, the Thursday night game versus the Jets and now versus the Ravens, they were just complete no-shows. That they just flat out were not ready compared to another NFL team on short rest to come out and play a football game. Like I feel it's hard for me not to look at it and wonder, all right, what about the core DNA of this team is not on the same level or caliber of other NFL teams, like the Jets.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a great point. What was last season? Last season was noon Sunday, noon Sunday, noon Sunday, noon Sunday, and you get into a routine. And there are certain things about last season's Texans, exhilarating as it was, them going 10-7, making the playoffs, winning a playoff game. I'm not trying to diminish that at all. But there is something to be said for playing a schedule where maybe the third best quarterback you played was Baker Mayfield last year. Mm-hmm. And you played noon Sunday every game until Week 18, where they put you on in primetime against the Colts. And you won that game, to their credit. The step up in weight class this season, and they may wind up with the same record as they did last year, 10-7. But we know the truth with this team right now, and the truth is not in the 9-8 or 10-7 that they'll call it 10-7 if they beat the Titans. The truth is not in that record. The truth is in the record over the last 8 games, which is 3-5.
Mm-hmm.
And the truth is big time in the record against good teams this year, which is 1-5.
Right.
Winning teams.
Even though you've slugged it out with a couple of them.
But you look totally outclassed in some of these games.
No, the thing is, when I say slug it out, I mean some of those, it's that you let it go in the fourth quarter.
That's right.
You slugged it out for 3 quarters with some of the better teams.
That's right.
But ultimately, like what the good teams do is in the fourth quarter, the players, the coaches, everybody have kind of learned something from the previous 3 quarters, and they go out and execute in the fourth quarter.
Yes.
The Texans have been the exact opposite in that regard.
Yep.
And then, like in CJ, we probably, I did this on my live stream last night. We're 8 minutes into it, and I mean, it's the elephant in the room. It's the most obvious thing in the room. CJ just flat out played awful last night.
Stunk.
There was just no excuses. You can take various plays and say, okay, well, there's a drop here, a drop there. Just way too many easy passes that CJ misfired on. Too many times where you could just tell that the rhythm and timing and everything else was just a little bit off. That throw to Dalton that he missed when Dalton was wide open in the flat. Sure, he was getting hit at the time, but he also could have made that decision a lot earlier.
Yeah.
Just knowing what the coverage was and knowing where the opportunity was,
Yep.
Schultz would have had 30 yards on that play.
Yeah.
There's so many. The misfire. Mechie missed one to Mixon. All these short, easy passes.
The first one was he missed Nico. Sailed it over his head on second down.
Yep.
And the Schultz play was the very next play on third down after that.
And obviously CJ took full accountability for it,
Yeah.
but that's. And he's the head of the snake. You chop off the head and the body fails. He can't have those moments in games like that.
You're 100% right. Like that's the most worrisome thing to come out of this game for me. They got blown out by the Ravens. I said 31-17. In my mind when I made that prediction, I'm like, probably could be a lot worse. I felt going into this game, A, they were running on fumes, and B, the Ravens I feel like the Ravens' best game is the best of any team's best game out there. Like, they're the team that Bills included, they're the team that has the most propensity, especially because they're getting it together on defense now, to embarrass you. And they embarrassed the Texans yesterday, but you're 100% right. The most worrisome thing to come out of this game yesterday is that there was nowhere else to point with the deficiencies in the passing game other than there are plenty of places to point, but this was the first time I felt like, boy, the criticism. I've always felt like the criticism CJ's been getting this season has been a little over the top. Not that he doesn't deserve some blame, but that it's been a little over the top based on all the stuff going on around him that I don't think is his fault. This was his fault yesterday.
And I would say in the last 2 weeks especially, there are mistakes he's making that are completely independent of whether it's poor blocking or not, and that's when he's in situations where he cannot take a sack. He's taking sacks. Or just there's a play where it's designed to get the ball out quickly. And all right, the play doesn't work out. So the pass protection will fail by design on those plays, and he's taking a sack.
Yeah.
Like you got to get rid of the football.
And he didn't do that last year.
No.
That was one of the big praises of CJ Stroud last year. Remember last year, like halfway through the season, and he hadn't really hit his stride yet, but he was playing well.
Yeah.
Remember, we were sticking up for him, people pointing to his completion percentage outside of Houston, people not watching the Texans. Well, he is only completing 58% of his passes. That's because he's throwing at least 5 or 6 balls a game away
he was
to avoid sacks.
And that's what was so impressive by rookie standards. He was way more mature in some of that game management stuff.
Yeah.
And man, I hate this because it's so easy to say, and yet sometimes the thing that's easy to say is because it's that they spent the entire offseason getting pumped up by rat poison from everybody about how awesome they were going to be. And I'm glad that this happened versus the Ravens, because last year after the divisional round, I said, man, you know what? It's the best thing for this team could have been that they really understood that they were out of their weight class. Yeah. They're not ready to play with the big boys yet. And then I think just because you acquire through free agency or trade weaponry, it almost feels like, oh, there we are. Oh, now we're over. That's what we needed. And a lot of these guys, and C.J. Stroud especially, didn't truly understand how hard it is to win in the NFL. And the difficulty level just got amped up that much higher this year because teams knew that they were a respectable team. They were somebody that they were going to get the best effort of other teams. Not to the point of like a Kansas City Chiefs or anything, but they are not ready for prime time.
They're not. They're not. And they got one game left to figure a few things out, and it's against the Titans. And I don't know how much you figure out against the Titans, although they did beat you at home back in Week 12.